So, Gemma, what have you been called too much of? Can you list it for me, please?
I've been called too aggressive and too angsty. I've been called not enough of certain things. I think I've not been feminine enough, not blending in enough. I've been called a stage hog. I've been called all kinds of strange things. But basically, I think that I'm seen as a bit too powerful when I'm on stage. I have too much energy. I take up too much space. I'm too loud. It's too raucous. It's, yeah, just generally that kind of vibe, I think, is what I've been called too much of. And it's all to do with like the way I perform, the style I perform, which is energetic, and I try and really feel the energy of the music that I'm playing and try and convey that to the audience. And I think for some people that message is too strong. They don't want to, it's not what they want to hear, even though they've come to watch me. So I'm not forcing them there. No one's ever like kept there against their will. But what is bizarre is it kind of goes against their judgment and their assumptions, and they do stay just so they can get to the end of my performance to come and tell me exactly what it is that they think I've done too much of. So,
yeah, can you tell us some anecdotes of the times you were called too much, like you said it?
Yeah, sure.
How it made you feel?
Yeah, so I did a show, a solo show, so that's, you're putting yourself in quite a vulnerable position because everything's on you. And it went really well. I have like tapes and CDs and things, and people came up and were buying them. So usually that means you've done a good performance if people want to take away a part of the show. And I was talking to a couple of women who seemed really empowered by my performance. They really loved it. They loved that I kind of was challenging the sort of gender binary by kind of performing in the way I was. And we were talking about that, and it was really nice. And then a guy came up and grabbed me by the arm and took me aside and said, "Yeah, you are very good, and I can see you're very good." But I could hear that there was a but in his voice. Anyway, he kind of said, "Oh, I've got to go and have a cigarette, but I'll come back." I was like, "Oh, great! I'm going to have a second instalment of whatever this is." That already kind of been filled with a kind of sense of impending doom, that I was going to receive some really unwanted kind of instructions about how I should be, and what his expectation was of me as a performer, as a human, as a female. Then he came back, and I was still middle of talking, in fact, signing some CDs, which was making me feel very good about myself. And he took my arm again, and he was like, "Right, I have to ask you, does your music come from a place of angst?" And I just thought, perhaps, I was thinking of music history, just brief music history, as like, you know, the history of rock and roll. I'm pretty sure like angst is a fairly motivating factor, and you know, some of the songs, not all of my songs are about angst, by the way. Some of them may be. I don't think I consciously channel that emotion. However, this is what he received. And he said, you know, I can tell you're good because I've been in the industry for a while, you know, I know about these things. I don't know who he was. And no one, as far as I know, just a man in the audience. I was like, you know, but you do need to tone down the angst. It's just too much angst. It's not good. You know, it's very good and everything, but it just needs to be toned down a bit. And luckily, I had just performed, so I was feeling quite euphoric, so it didn't really affect me. And perhaps if I had just been walking down the street and someone said, "The way you're walking, it's just too much, it's too powerful," I probably would have reacted differently. I just turned my back on him. I didn't give him any energy because I could see that it was a black hole. It was a vampiric. It was going to be a vampiric experience. He was going to just try and take away my power, essentially, trying to take away the thing that made me strong, and try and take away the thing that had impressed and affected and helped, you know, the women in the audience to feel a part of something, like that they could be powerful, they could be how I was. And he wanted to take that away. I could see that, so I just kind of shut that down as quickly as I could, and just turned away. I just turned away because there was nothing else to say. Yeah. Yeah. It's so cringy. You kind of can't believe that people don't feel how sort of creepy it is to start to come into somebody's territory like that, to try and start to kind of chip away at what might be a part of what makes them strong or makes them a person, to try and highlight one element which is, you know, rogue for them for some reason. It doesn't fit with their worldview, and so they try and take it away from you or suggest that you remove it. Like, It's really bizarre.
Yeah, definitely. And are there any anecdotes you'd like to share at all?
Yeah, the one where I was called a stage hog might be quite a good one as well. So I performed in a band called Land Shapes, which had its sort of history as a kind of folk band, but we developed a lot. I started bringing effects pedals to the rehearsals, and it all got incredibly out of hand very quickly. We all ended up with huge guitar rigs and, you know, bass amps and all the rest of it. And we were really enjoying expressing ourselves. You know, it was really fun. We really enjoyed the songs. It was a lot of experimentation and everyone learning about their equipment and things like that. So we got this tour in Germany, and I mean, German hospitality is pretty good. Maybe I'd had like maybe I was slightly refreshed when I went on stage, and but you know, I gave it my all. Like the thing is, like, you know, I would always give my all and kind of really go for it. And I think the expectation was, because of our previous music history, that we were going to sort of stand there quite demurely and sing kind of 3-part harmonies, but we didn't. We kind of really went for it and had a really great time. And the guy came up to me afterwards and said, "You are what we refer to in Germany as a stage hog, or a stage pig." And I was like, wow, that's kind of incredible. I was so amazed that he would come up to me and say that. I was pretty sure that if I was a 6-foot guy, he probably wouldn't have come up and said that. If I was, like, you know, a member of Sepultura or something, he wouldn't be coming up and telling me that. But I think it's because he was just so offended that I should choose to, you know, deny part of my femininity and instead choose this kind of different role. He just couldn't handle it. He had to sort of, again, take it apart, try and take the power away, make it something negative, you know, make it an unattractive animal. You know, by being on stage and behaving like this, you've made yourself unattractive, like a pig. It's just like, it's kind of weird. But my Chinese year of birth is the year of the pig, so I'm going to just take it as a compliment. I think the pig was one of the good ones, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think it like came second in the race.
Yeah, I think so. That's fine. Second's fine.
So you talked earlier kind of about like your personal life and your sort of your kind of like show stage presence and like coming to terms with one quicker than the other. Is there are there any examples in your personal life where you've been too much, or has that not been touched?
Where I've been too much in my personal life? Yeah, there has been. I was in a very negative, bad relationship. I think, I kind of strangely kind of was drawn to a very negative kind of relationship for some reason. I think it was, I don't know, maybe I didn't think I deserved a good one or something. And I was always too much. This person was only really happy when I was kind of dressed in clothes I didn't feel comfortable in at all, or my hair was how they found it attractive, you know. And you know, throughout my life I've done things like that. I'm kind of like thinking about, I think I told you about how I wrote a song because I knew my mum would like it, but I didn't really like it. And you know, doing these things because you get some kind of praise or security from it in some way. Like the promise is that you'll get love and you'll get security and you'll get, held in some way. But actually what they're holding is not you. So ultimately that experience is kind of a bit empty. And so when I was myself, it'd be like I'm too much. I'd be too involved in my music. That was a thing that really upset them. And they got very jealous and behaved very badly and would deny that was what's happening. But they thought that, you know, I was spending too much time with the band. I was spending too much time on my music. You know, I should, like, they had this very traditional, like, role, like, set up for me in their head, despite, I guess, their initial attraction to me being something to do with the fact that I was rogue and kind of different to that. So it's funny, some people do try and shut that down, and so that has happened in my personal life. I think being in music has given me an inner strength. Like, it's my secret place. It's my secret place, but it's also like a public thing as well. I share it, and that kind of makes it real. That makes it kind of have its power. So in terms of like when I'm on stage, I think part of the bonus is that you're full of like endorphins and things when you come off stage. So you feel really good about yourself. So even when you do encounter these slightly negative people, it's kind of okay. You can kind of like bat that off. But I think in your personal life, because you're not like always doing something where people are clapping at you, you know, you aren't always quite sure if you are doing the right thing. So it's easier for people, for that kind of second guessing sort of element to come in. So your anxiety can be sort of triggered. People can hook into sort of like deep-seated kind of fears and anxieties that you've held on to since you were a child. So it's more difficult there, I think, perhaps sometimes. If you're doing something you know you're good at, or you're fairly sure you're good at it, you kind of don't care if other people don't like it as much. Whereas if you're just trying to be, you're just like, here I am just being, and someone has a critique of that, it's much more difficult because you're like, well, I'm literally just being myself and it's too much. Like, I don't know what you want me to turn off here. Like, you're asking me to modify myself and edit myself and I can't do it. I did for a while and it was really damaging, like incredibly damaging. Like, I got stuck in a relationship for so long. It was ridiculous because the more you're in it, the less, you know, the more disempowered you become, like the less you start to remember, less you sort of believe that you're right, and the more that other person kind of starts to overpower you and take away that space. So they kind of step into that space that you have in your brain to be yourself and take that for themselves. They need that, they want that. So it's hard to sort of get away from that. It took a lot of strength. I was lucky I had music. I saw a picture the other day of when we were on tour in America, and I looked so tired. I don't think I've ever seen myself look so tired in this picture, and it was like right in the middle of this awful relationship. And but luckily I had that, what they used to refer to as my secret life. Well, actually it was my real life, my actual life where I was myself, and without moderation. And yeah, without music, without having that second life, I don't know what I would have done really. Now I kind of live that fully, and it's great. Like, I'm kind of tentatively stepping into it and learning more and more each day. But it could have been a disaster. It could have been awful. Like, I could have ended up, who knows what might have happened. I would have been very unhappy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to share this, like, what kind of things did you change about yourself in terms of, like, was there...
A fairly massive one was, okay, so, you know, this is how far you can end up going because you just want that feeling of acceptance. So obviously so now I know that I am gay, but at the time I was married to a man, which was fairly extreme. And like, it was really bizarre because I did kind of keep part of myself secret and hidden. Like, I'm lucky I kind of maintained that. Like, in the back of my head, it was not really all real, it wasn't really happening. And I got into the relationship during a very weird point in my life. My mum had just died and I just finished uni and it was really intense. And this person kind of offered up this very kind of square, sort of, you know, heteronormative kind of reality that seemed like security. But, you know, what I changed about myself is, like, you know, I guess how I dressed, because I kind of dress a little bit like boyish, I guess, or like I just like being comfortable. I'm like an old man. I'm like big pants and big trousers, you know. Like I cut, you know, my choices are like, you know, I like fashion and whatever, but my choices are generally based on, like, can I put my phone in my pocket, something like that. That kind of changed. So I started, you know, there started to be these new values that were brought in that I hadn't thought about before, like, you know, female beauty and attractiveness. Like, I hate that idea. I hate walking down the street and being noticed in any kind of way like that. It's not something I'm thinking about. You know, I'm just doing my day. I'm just having a croissant. I don't need somebody to remind me that, like, what shape or size or whatever I am. And but that became like a thing, like, you know, and it didn't feel like a nice thing. I guess now I realise because I am gay and I didn't want the attention of males on me at all. So, but at the time it was like, okay, so that's something to do with how I have to be. So, all right, so this is like those shoes are too like boyish, or this is too that. So I kind of changed the way I dressed, and, you know, I kind of, now I look back, I'm like, how did I become this person? This kind of like Stepford wife kind of character, like, you know, not meant to do that, not meant to do this, like, you know, trying to be feminine, and it was just awful. I kind of completely almost lost myself completely, and that's a very hard place to come back from, and come back to yourself, especially if all of your family and, like, sort of various people are kind of sort of cheerleaders for this, like, oh, thank God she's finally normal, you know, she's normal, we don't need to worry. Yeah, you know, because I was like when I was younger, like, I used to be referred, like, Gemma's always been very difficult, like, difficult, I've been difficult. Difficult means I just didn't, like, I would protest if something I felt was wrong, you know. I'd stand up for what I valued, and...
Inadequate parent, well,
yeah.
Yeah, people who call you different were inadequate.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm just me. I'm not difficult. Maybe it doesn't fit in with your schedule, but sorry, like, that's not how it works. Like, so yeah, that's kind of how I might have changed myself. How else might I have changed myself? Like, yeah, just how I dressed, like, what I wanted to be. I realise now that part of my performing is being kind of like a queer character, having, like, you know, being kind of slightly non-binary, I suppose, really. That's really a part of my performance. I stopped making music. Actually, that's huge. Why did I not mention that? I kind of stopped making my own music because he was incredibly critical about stuff, and you know, I'd record something. I listened back to it recently, and actually it's quite good. I'm like, that's kind of, I might actually put that on my album as like a kind of secret track. Like that's good. But it was never enough. You know, it was like, oh, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit too 70s. Why do you always like insist on sticking to this kind of like, you know, this style? It's not. You should be more like this. You should be more like that. And I kind of felt that's not really what you should do as an artist ever. Like that's really damaging, especially as they're in that position of control, of power, and ultimately it was control. It was like a fairly dark relationship the more I think back to it. And, you know, I was too messy, like, so everything always boiled down to like our relationship would be better. Like I'd bring something up, I'm not very happy for some reason, you know, I am sad, I feel quite sad because of this. And it'd be like, well, if you cleaned up more and everything was tidy, then everything would be fine, and then you'd have my attention, sort of thing. It was really bizarre. Like, really strange things would happen. Like, I'd get like my stuff, like if I left my things out on the table or a chair, they'd get put in a box, and like, he called it the Jemma box. It was really dark.
Aggressive.
Yeah, super weird. So, yeah, that's the kind of ways I modified and changed myself. So it took like quite a lot of bravery to leave that, because I did have this kind of, the only thing that was good about it was I kind of had like a roof over my head essentially, and I became so scared that I wouldn't be able to like just do things by myself. It was just like the weirdest thing, but I just kind of left, and then everything kind of got better since then. Yeah.
That's great. I'm pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's so interesting because, you know, there was the woman came in and she was like, you know, like she said, I love criticism from people who have my best interests at heart, people I love and care about. But it's very difficult when people who you think are meant to have your best interests at heart, like, you know, your husband or a partner or whatever, you know, and actually it's not at all, and it's sort of and it's almost acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, as a society, it's kind of an acceptable thing that, you know, a lot of women kind of get tamed into this kind
yeah,
of role.
absolutely.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's even more bizarre to me that I managed to get kind of like almost tricked into that. Like, I don't know how that happened. I guess I was in a very vulnerable position and place, and I just kind of acquiesced and went with this situation. But no, it's terrifying if there's like someone like that you should be able to trust. You have entrusted with your life to some extent, and they undermine it like subtly every single day until you kind of don't really feel like you exist anymore. So I was lucky that I had like another band that I could play in. So I just joined the band mainly because I didn't have any attachment to it at all, and I kind of was like, well, I'll just play guitar. I did end up, obviously we all like end up being like really good friends and making like great music in our opinion. You know, if I hadn't had that and hadn't had the experience of going out and being able to meet other people, because I became like, incredibly isolated, I like lost a lot of friends, I don't know what would have happened to me really if I hadn't had that interest, if I didn't have this to keep me going, like and provide these opportunities where I can go out and like I said, like meet other people and have discussions and realise that I wasn't crazy, and people could converse with me and be interested and agree and or disagree, and you know, and that kind of brought like an element of reality into it. And so I slowly started to realise that there was something incredibly dysfunctional going on like at home. So
no, absolutely.
but you can be like worn down. It's kind of scary. Like you can see how people become like, you know, institutionalized in places like of work, for example, because it's just easier over time. It's just like this war of attrition. You cannot resist. You kind of keep you're like washed away eventually. You don't really get to talk about it with other people because there's a certain amount of it's a lot to do with shame, I think. Being called too much, like you're shaming, you know, people into not exploring their actual power. They're trying to make you feel embarrassed about something because it is your power. Like they're scared of it because if you invest in it and you kind of try and understand it and use it like to your advantage and or other people's kind of advantage as well, they can get scared of it. They can so that then the horrible thing is that kind of some humans are like really negative and they just try and shut it down. They don't like it. They feel threatened. They can't embrace it. They don't understand that you're not against them. It's just you are an energy and they are an energy, and they can't really understand that it's not there to hurt them. You know, it's not going to hurt them. It's in fact, if you invest in it and you appreciate it, then you'll have a nice time. It'll be good. But like, it's amazing to me, like how much energy people put into trying to shut things down. And like, I was just, I work somewhere at the minute where, actually no, I'm not going to say that. But okay, I have an experience where, people just aren't into something new happening. They feel threatened by it and they want to protect themselves over the good of other people. And it's kind of a very odd human trait because it takes so much more energy to think about like being strategic and trying to like do something like that rather than just being nice. That is just easy. That just happens. You don't have to think about that. That takes literally almost no energy. So it's so hard to understand when people kind of choose to fixate on things and try and break them down. And
I think that people have got an extreme fear of like being outcast, and a lot of women here have talked about, just talked about feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And if they conform outside of, if they are too much, then they feel like there'll be people that aren't recognised in society. They're kind of maybe you get a lot of people who are icons and they've done great things, but we like to look at them and think, wow, they're amazing, but not necessarily want to be there with them on the outside, if that makes sense, or what we think of as the outside. But actually maybe it's right here with us, and maybe we should just all say goodbye to the system and just all get together, right? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's empowering if you get together and you kind of appreciate people's different talents and abilities and things like that. Like, it's strange. People choose to isolate themselves, I think, sometimes, but then other times it can be like I used to manage a charity shop, and someone said to me, "It's lonely at the top," and I was like, "What?" But it is. It's like you have to like deal with not being popular. Sometimes you have to make decisions like that will not please everybody, and but you have to kind of have the foresight to realise that it's for the greater good, But you need people to trust you for that to work, and you can't have someone in your team or in your life that doesn't have your best interests at heart. Like it just won't work. It becomes a power struggle, and it's not about creating something, which can be a problem in music as well. Things change over time. So it's interesting. There are people that we kind of see as like icons, but we see them as kind of somehow separate. But they wouldn't have got there unless they were like nice to people, like generally, or people that like kind of all these horrible things that are coming out. Like you have to either be, I think, really, really nice to everybody, or you're just this kind of strange, devious person that's like quite dark and does like horrible things. It seems to be like the way that things happen, like kind of super evil. But I don't know.
Yeah. We're talking of like these amazing people and like sort of power. Like what with your too muches?
Yeah.
So each one, like, can you sort of, how do you translate that as your power?
How do I translate it as my power? So sort of like being too angsty, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And like how it's helped you, why you love it, why it's, how even helped other people.
Yeah, I think so. It probably started like when I was actually angsty was probably when I was a teenager, probably. And I think it was helpful to people. My brother said something to me. He was like, "Jemma, you're kind of amazing at school because you kind of just did your own thing and you just didn't give a shit." Actually, I did. I gave like loads, like I really cared. I was really super anxious. I was like kind of hyper aware of everything. But I was like, well, that's really good that he kind of thought that was empowering. And I think other people, probably it might have helped them who were kind of slightly less extreme than me. Like, I used to like metal, I think more as a protest because my dad used to just buy all pop music. So there was nothing left for me to listen to. And, I kind of dressed a bit like a metaler. I never fully committed to it, but... I just have one kind of lame piercing, but but I think that has helped me because I was kind of picked on, I was victimized for being different, for being passionate in my arguments, which was misconstrued as like anger or something. It wasn't channeled correctly, and so it just grew probably into anger. But I think now that's good because I feel empowered to translate some of that and translate that frustration into like nice songs that are interesting to listen to, that people can connect to. And like, you know, if you hear somebody else singing or saying something, then you can resonate with that, and you feel less alone. In terms of being like a stage hog, I kind of love that idea. Like, yeah, okay, I take up a lot of space, but I'm on a stage and you've come to watch a show. Yeah. So this is the show, it's happening now, this is the one. It's not another show. I'm not like a bad actor or something that's playing the role wrong. I'm just playing a different role to the one you expected me to be playing. So, yeah. I think that, yeah, sure. I think that it's good to just hold on to yourself, like remember who you are, and if someone's saying that you're too much, it means that they've noticed something about you, and it might just be that they're threatened by it, and it's not something negative about you, it's them, they're throwing that onto you. And you shouldn't focus on that, and you should just hold on to that thing, like think about it, and yeah, try and take it into yourself and move forward with that energy, because it's important. Like, yeah, if you've been called too angsty, like, I don't know, maybe you're actually kind of quite self-aware and you have something to say and you want to tell other people about it, and you know, your motivations probably are not to be negative towards someone else, but to share something. And if you are open and you share something, then you tend to, you'll get all kinds of people coming out. You'll get lots of people coming out of the woodwork if you're open and you share something. You'll get some people that will be really appreciative of it, and you can see you've been of benefit to them, and they will share a good part of themselves with you as well. But then also, if you're open, you've got to be careful. It lets in the dark and the light. So it's like, just be aware of that, because you've managed to get someone's attention because you're on stage or something like that. You know, if you're a performer, you can be quite hungry for attention. Just be very aware that that attention you might be getting is not necessarily in your best interest. It might be someone that's trying to break you down and stop you from being what you could be. So that would be my advice, I think.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's really brilliant.
Well, I know that people seem strange, others around you act like they're deranged. Well, I don't see why you think you're so right. Release yourself and let those birds take flight. Hard times in my life made me strange. People and always to blame. Oh no. Let's not focus on what has already passed. How you came to see yourself always come last. In this old game that I hear you call life. What bow down before you've even tried. Hard times in my life made me strange. People and always to blame. Oh no. Cool. All